All right, so we'll just get started. Confirm you can hear me. And confirm you can see my screen.
Yes, I can hear you. And I can see your screen. I can hear and I can see.
All right, so just get started now. Okay, so today's class we are talking about CSS positioning, right? CSS positioning and animation, right? So we've been working on CSS for the past few classes, as we all know, and still continuing with our classes today, but we want to create something new, right? Just a new folder, and call it maybe CSS, maybe class 8, right? So class 8, right? So within the class 8, of course, you're going to have a new file to say index.html, right? So let's start on a clean slate. Then here we are going to have our CSS to say styles.css. All right, so as usual, let's have a document structure and let's tag this CSS positioning and animations. Okay, so in our styles.css. Okay, so next is just to link our link. We want to link our style sheet, so rel style sheets and rel style sheet. So we have href, and our href is dot, so we can say / styles.css. Okay, so just to test, maybe you're watching this video for the very first time. So just to test that our style sheet has been successfully linked, you can come here to say body. So your body tag, let's see a background color. Let's say brown, for example, just to be sure. So why do we have this background? Okay, so we missed G. Let's go back to our index.html and from there open with live server. All right, so this works, right? Okay, so let's take out that background color for now and take out the body. So let's use a universal style as usual to say box sizing to be border box. Yeah, border box. Then of course we have our padding to be 0. And we're also gonna have a margin to be 0. And like we know with that, what it's gonna do is that every of our style or every of our on the page that to be as it is given to it. So there's not going to be any additional padding. There's not any additional margin. So box sizing, border box 0, margin 0. That's all right. Then we now go into the positioning proper. So I think what to make this class interesting is that we are going to bring in So let's assume we are building a site and want to maybe bring in our social media icons, right? Let's just assume that we want to bring in our social media icons on our website. So let's do something. Let's go to um, let's go here to say I want to get some icons. Let's say WhatsApp, or maybe let's use Facebook, Facebook, Facebook icon. So let's see Facebook icon. We can choose anyone too, but let me see. So we can choose this. Yeah. So let's save image as. Let's see. Or you know what? Let's use this one. I think this one is doesn't have a background. Yeah. So let's save image as. So we are going to save it in our project this time. Project is under desktop and we have class 1. So we have class 8, right? Um, so Facebook, so we can just say FB, FB icon, FB icon, right? So let's do Instagram icon, right? Okay, so let's see this one. Okay, so let's use this one. Okay, so save image as just using this for demonstration to say Instagram icon. So let's have one more. Okay, so maybe let's say Pinterest. Pinterest icon. So let's use this one. Mm. Okay, so yeah, so let's save image as so that's Pinterest, right? Pinterest. We have 3 icons. So I think we should add one more, maybe LinkedIn. So let's say LinkedIn icon, right? Let's choose the dark one. Okay, so save image as to say LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn. So can stop there. All right, so I've downloaded what's all that I needed. Of course, you can see them here. This FB icon. So it shows this Instagram, this LinkedIn, this Pinterest. So what I want to do is, since there are a couple of images here, I want to put all of them in a folder, still under class 8, right? Under class 8, I want to have a folder called images where I'm going to put all of them. So I'll just drag the Facebook icon, drop, it's going to move. Drag the Instagram, drop in my images, drag the LinkedIn, drop there, then drag the Pinterest and drop there. All right, so I've successfully put all of them in a folder, right? So let's go back to our index.html. Okay, so let's do this. So we want to say positioning, right? Um, so positioning. So here, let's have a div, right? So a div to contain these images. just to show you. So let's say IMG. So let's say SRC. So source dot slash images slash, let's start with FB, that's Facebook. So in our alt, we can have Facebook icon. So we can replicate same for okay, so let's type IMG SRC, then yeah, images slash Instagram icon alt, so Instagram icon, then we close that. Then we go to the next, so I say IMG SRC, so dot forward slash images forward slash LinkedIn now. Then our alt is gonna be LinkedIn icon. Then let's have the last IMG SRC dot forward slash images slash. Okay, so I have double forward slash here. Let's take one out. So after images forward slash Pinterest. All right, so alt, we can say Pinterest logo, right? Logo or icon, anyone. Then we have to close that. Yeah. So we have all of this. So first, let's even look at what our web page looks like. Okay, so let's see. So this looks really ugly. Okay, so let's give some good styling to it at least, so that I want them in a single div. You're going to see in a single line, you'll see what I want to show you. So let's style this. Okay, so what can we do? Let's give the parents an ID and say social, maybe social media, right? ID or social media. So let's copy that. Go to our styles.css, right? So we can say, of course, you use your hash for ID, Control V, then from there. So, but what we want to do is we want to target those images, right? So remember, we have a lot of images there. So we want to target those images, and we are using the parents just to remind you. So when you say hash is for ID because we gave ID to the parent, then social media, of course, that's the name of the ID. Then using this means that you want to target the children, and remember that all the children are images, right? So whatever style I'm going to give here is going to affect all the children at once. So let's just say width. Maybe we want to give all of them a uniform width to say maybe 20 pixels. Yeah, so let's see how that looks like. Yeah, of course you can see all of them have become small. Yeah, 20 pixels. Then what else do I want to do? I actually want to put them in a box kind of. So let me do this to say, let me style the parent. So to say social media, social underscore media. Okay, so let's give it a border, right? Let's give it a border to say maybe 2 pixels solid, maybe red. I want it to really stand out, but let's see how that goes. Okay, so okay. So this is quite long. This is not what I want to achieve. I want it to take the exact, you know, exact content, right? So we can say, oh, sorry. So we can say display. Let's see. Let's do this. Display, maybe inline. I want it to be inline block. Let's see. Okay. So when we say display inline block, it just takes the width, right? It take the extent to which the content is. That's the width of the container. That's what we have achieved by saying inline block, right? So remember that inline elements are actually going to take as much space as the contents, right? So that's why immediately we said inline block. Yeah, so it actually did this for us. Okay, so let me see. Let's give it some padding so that padding, let's give it some padding to say maybe 10 pixels. Okay, so just that. Then I also want to give some space. Um, I want to arrange them top to bottom because I want to use different positions to show you. I want to arrange it from top to bottom. So let me see. So instead of inline block, can we have inline flex? Yeah, can have inline flex. Okay. So with inline flex, we'll be able to remember we talked about, there's a time we talked about CSS flex box and CSS grid. So why am I giving it inline flex? I'm giving it inline flex because I want to stack these icons one on top of the other, right? I want to change the positioning. I want all of them to fall to change the flex direction so that they come down, they stack from top to bottom instead of from left to right. So that's why I changed it to inline flex. Then with that, I think we can now play with the flex direction to say, uh,
You are muted. It's no longer talking.
top to bottom, right? Since it's arranged from top to bottom, we're actually going to use align content, align item, sorry. But also remember that to use align items, of course, you need to give a height, right? You need to give height to say 100 view h. That's view height, viewport height. Then you now give the align items to say, I just want to give some space. Okay, so let me see. Maybe center. Let me see. Okay. It is actually too long. So let me give the parents a height. Okay, it's 100 view height. So let's change it to let's give it in pixels this time so that you see what I want to achieve. Maybe we want to make it so let's say like maybe 200 pixels, right? Okay, great. So I think this looks nice. All right. So we have what we are looking for. This is just an example. Say you want to um, bring in social media handles to your website, right? And mind you, you can wrap all of this in an anchor tag because you want it to be clickable, right? You can wrap them in an anchor tag and put the right link so that when the user clicks, it actually takes them there. But that's not the concern for this class at the moment. So what I want to do, let me just do the positioning. So we have different types of positions, right, in CSS. So let me see this, this to say CSS positioning, right? So in CSS, we have different positions. Remember, I had said in our previous class that the use of flex, right? The use of CSS flex and CSS grid now eliminated the position, right? So with flex, you can position your elements the way you want to do it without actually using the position property. However, the position property is still useful and it has its own use case, right? So, so position, right? So position in CSS, so we have different values, right? So do we have static, yeah? So we have static, we have relative. So we have relative, we have absolutes, we have fixed, we have sticky. So these are the different positions we actually have in CSS, which you can always utilize depending on whatever you want to achieve. Then when you use these positions, in order to see what you are doing, there's a second um, style that you need to apply, which is the direction. So you can call it or direction or navigation, right? So that style is used for direction or navigation. And what do you have? So within direction or navigation, you can have things like um, so you can have top, right? You can have top, you can have bottom, you can have left, you can have right. So with this, when you have top, bottom, left, right, you are able to shift the elements, right? You want to shift it top, bottom, left, right. I'm going to demonstrate that just in a bit so that you'll be able to see what we are talking about. So yeah, so CSS positioning. So by default, right? Let me just continue to make the note here to say, by default, right? By default, all elements are, all elements rather, have position static, right? So by default, all elements have this position static. Yeah. So if you say, let's come to this place, the images to say, or let's come to the parent to say, maybe position. So let's say position static. So we are not going to see anything. There's no change. So you wouldn't really know what has happened. There's actually no change because we have said position should be static. And remember that all elements by default have static um, position. So you won't see anything. So, but when you come to say position relative, right? So instead of static, let's comment static. Uh, let's comment static to say, and let's bring out position relative. Yeah. So what does position relative do? So position relative is going to position these elements because we are giving the positioning relative to this element. So we are going to give um, this element is going to be positioned relative to this div that contains the social media icons. It's going to be positioned to itself, its own position, relative to its position. That's what position relative does. It just makes that element that the relative position is applied to be relative to its current position. So let me do this to say position relative to say Position relative makes the elements to be positioned, right? Relative to its current position, right? So that's what position relative does. So in order for you to see the effect of position relative, remember I said that there are some navigation or direction styles, right? Direction or navigation styles or style values that you can give to the elements. Anywhere you use position, right? You can add the top, right, bottom, left, and see what happens. So if we come here to say top, maybe top, and we say let's say 50 pixels. So what happens? Let's see. So can you see? It has shifted from its position by 50 pixels. And when it shifts, right? When it shifts, it's going to leave a space. It's more like, just look at it as though um you are creating a shadow of something. But in this shadow, the original has been taken out, right? The original is no longer there, yet it leaves a vacuum. So nothing else fills it, but you have a copy. Okay, so just look at it like maybe you cut something or you copied something. So you have that space. That space remains the space. Nothing else fills it, but you now have the copy. So with that copy, you can move it around. You can move, you can say top, you give it a certain pixels, you can say left and right. So let's do that. So we say top 50 pixels. We can say bottom, or we can say left. We can say left maybe 200 pixels. So you can see it shifts left 200 pixels. So it actually works like margin. You might think, what's the difference between this and margin? Margin will still shift this thing. If you give it a margin, it's going to shift. If you give it padding, so yeah, so if you give the body padding, actually, this will equally shift. If you give it margin, if you give this element margin, it's actually still going to shift to this place. But there's difference between using position and actually using margin. Margin is actually going to create a space from the far left down to this place. But for this one can even stay on top. Okay, so let's do this just to demonstrate. So we have, okay, let's bring in a text or a paragraph, yeah, and say lorem 500. Let's just generate 500 words. Okay. So, yeah. Okay. So can you see that this element is more or less floating. It's as though it is floating on top, right? So remember that there is space here. That's what I said. There is space. This element was initially here at my top left. And I told you that when you say position relative, that element is going to like create a copy, if you want to call it so, create a copy, yet the original one, or you can say cut, because if you do Control X, you see it's going to cut. So that cut creates a vacuum. It's going to create a vacuum because this is where this element was originally contained. It was originally from top left to around this point. We are the ones that said position relative. So by saying position relative, it's not going to, the gap will remain, right? The gap is going to remain. That's why when we said lorem, this lorem did not go up to take its position. Although this element or this social media container is floating, right? It didn't go to take its position. So it leaves a vacuum at that point. But you can move around with it, right? You can take it to the left, you can take it to the right, you can take it to the top, you can take it to the bottom, anyhow you want to do it, right? It depends on what you want to achieve. So, so if you go back to stars.css, let's say we just give left of, let's give more top, maybe of 150 pixels, just for you to see it better. So can you see 150 pixels top? What has happened? It has come down the more. So it is 150 pixels from the top here. From this top to this point here is actually 150 pixels. So using position is actually one of the ways that you can, move, depending on your use case, right? You can actually move um, elements or items. You can move elements on your web page anyhow you want to do it. But just for you to understand the impact, right? When you say position relative, what happens? It actually leaves a vacuum. When you say position absolute, what happens? When you say position sticky, when you say position static, when you say position fixed. So I just demonstrated how position relative works. Is actually going to more like create a copy and leave its original space vacant in a way that nothing else can fill it, right? Then it's going to move that element. By the time you use the navigation styles to say top, bottom, left, right, it's actually going to push that element to anywhere you want it to go to using those navigation styles. So if you want this to be at the top left, far top left here, so or top right, sorry, this top left. So let's say top right. So what you can do, you can say top 0. So if you say top 0 and you say, I think, let me see, right. Let's say right 0. Let's see. Okay, so let me see. Let's 0, 0. Okay, so top 0, right 0. Okay, let me see left. Left 0 pixels. Pixels. Position relative, top 0, left 0. Okay, so so if we add something to this left, okay, so let's increase this left and maybe say 500 pixels. Okay, so it moves. Okay, so I actually zoomed my browser. I've just taken the zoom back, and this is how my browser looks like by default. Okay, so let me see. So if we make it 1.5, but you can just to let you know that with top left, bottom. Okay, we've moved the 1.5. Look at where it is. We now have to shift our browser window to the left and right to see it. So if we like, we can make it 1.2. So depending. So, but what position this position is going to do is it will just it's not responsive, right? That's another thing about positioning. It's actually not responsive, except you have to go to, it's not responsive by default, except you have to go to media queries, right? While writing the media queries, you can actually now do you can now change it. If top, let's say if top was 0, left was 1200 pixels, maybe if you now bring in media query, at media query, you can now say, okay, when the screen is small, maybe let's demonstrate. So you can say at media, let's just say max width. So if the max width is 768 pixels, so at this point you can decide to define this. You still bring in your social media. That's hash social media. So before the advent of CSS, Flexbox, and Grid, this is what was actually being used, right? Position. You can combine it with floats and, move your elements how you want to do it. But it's actually not responsive by default. If you want to make it responsive, you still need to come to media query to say, maybe initially you said top should be 0 and left should be 1200 pixels. So you can come here and say maybe top 0, left maybe maybe 400 pixels, right? 400 pixels. So that these are small screen. So let's inspect and actually see. So I want to kill this guy. Take out this guy. Okay, so I'm trying to. Okay, so let me just don't know why this is taking so much of my screen. Let me see. Okay, so I think from here, okay. All right, so I'm able to push it back. So you can see it's because we set the media query. So if we let's reload. So that's why it has taken, because we said at 768 the left should be 400 pixels. But now if we didn't have this media query, let's assume we didn't have this media query, right? So you would see that you have to scroll. You see, you have to scroll to the far right in order to be able to see the social media handles, right? You need to scroll. So this is what was used in the past, where developers will be struggling with media query, so much of media query. It's not that media query is not being used now, it's still in use. But with the advent of CSS Flexbox, it reduces repetition of codes using the media query. So yeah. So this is position relative, right? So I've just explained what it is and how it works. Then next we'll do position fixed. How does position fixed work? So let me comment this out. Right, comment this out. And okay, so we want to check position fixed. Position fixed. So position fixed does not leave any gap. So let me come here. That's relative now. So this position, to say position fixed does not, so it does not leave any gap, right? It does not leave any gap. You're going to see it. Position fixed does not leave any gap. Then what else? It is position relative. It is positioned relative to the viewport. So if it is positioned relative to the viewport, then it means that the scrolling doesn't affect it, right? So when a user is scrolling, scrolling doesn't affect it, right? So position fixed. So let's demonstrate. So we have position fixed for this. Let me see. So you can see this lorem has now gone up. If you notice here, lorem has gone up to take its position while it is fixed at that point. But what I want to do is I want this web page to be really long so that you're going to see, or so that we are going to scroll, right? We'll scroll up and come down, So let me make this web page to be long. Okay, so I think I know what to do. Okay, so let's do this. So let's come to this paragraph and give it an ID, right? So let's give it an ID to say lorem, maybe lorem paragraph, lorem P. I can just call it lorem P, right? And copy it, go to our styles to say, let's go down, go to our styles to say hash, then Control V. Okay, so width, let's reduce the width. You're gonna see width, let's make it maybe 300 pixels. Then let's make the height to float. The height to say, either you can say max content or auto. Auto is just going to be according to the content, right? When you say auto, it's going to be just according to, so you can see, I'm scrolling up and down, and that element remains fixed where it is. It doesn't move. So let me zoom in a little bit. Just, yeah. So same effect, right? You scroll up, come down, it doesn't change. So what you can even do here is that we can give it a background. So let's give that div a background, and let's maybe background color. Let's give it a background color of I don't know. Let's see how. Okay, maybe something like this. So that it will be really distinct. So this position fixed. You can see immediately you say position fixed, it goes out of the normal flow of the document and stays like on top, right? And from there you're able to scroll. When you even scroll, it does not affect the element. So at this point you cannot use top, or let's use bottom this time. Bottom to say 0. So what happens? So you see, bottom 0 has already come down. It brought it down. Then you can say, let me see, maybe right. Let's see. Right 0. Okay. So you can see it has come to the bottom right of our web page. So we can put it at the middle here if we want. We can put it at the middle instead of putting it at the bottom. Since it's going to be fixed, right? The position is fixed. It's not moving. So we can just put it at the center here for people to see. So what we can do is to say, uh, so let's see, bottom. So we can play with this bottom to say maybe 250 pixels. Okay, so that's too high. So let's say maybe 150. Okay, I think this is what I wanted to achieve. Yeah. So maybe you've come across some website where they have their social media icons just embedded to the right, and it doesn't matter how you scroll, it doesn't change. It just remains there. So this is actually how to achieve it, right? All right. So that's position fixed. So let's comment it out and look at the next. So next is position absolute. Position absolute. Okay. So when you say position absolute, right, it's actually going to be this div. Let's go back. Yeah. So when you say position absolute, right? So you can even see, in fact, from scrolling, you can see that position absolute, when you scroll, is actually going to scroll with, it will scroll with the page, right? Position absolute will scroll with the page. Okay, so let me put that in our notes here to say position absolute will scroll with the page, right? So it will scroll with the page. Then what else? It's still not going to leave any gap. That's another thing about that. So You say it will not, it doesn't leave any gap. It doesn't leave any gap on the web page, right? So immediately you give it position absolute on the web page. So, but when you say position absolute, right, it's gonna position itself relative to its closest ancestor, right? Take note. When you say position absolute, so position absolute will position the element to position the element relative to its closest positioned ancestor. Else, so if there's no closest position ancestor, it's going to position itself. Else it will position itself relative to the document, right? That's what it's going to do. So let me explain. Let me demonstrate. So as it is now, there is no ancestor of it that has position relative, right? This is actually position absolute. But if you check our code in our HTML, there is no place where we have given position relative. There's none of its ancestors. So when you say ancestor, it's like parents, right? So when we say parents, parent is an ancestor. You can say grandparents, and all of that, and you can keep going. So the where your web page on your website, there is no closest positioned ancestor. It's actually going to position itself relative to the document. But so this is exactly what is taking place here, as you can see. There is none that has position relative, which is an ancestor or parents. Of course, ancestor is like parents, grandparents, and all of that, which is an ancestor. So it's actually going to position itself relative to the document. But if we come to our code here, this is a div, right? So if we come to our code here and have another div here, right? So let's push this. Let's copy this, or let's cut it, Control X, and put it inside here. Then save so that I can format. Oh, so it didn't format. Why? Okay, so let's do manual formatting. Okay, tab. You just press your tab. When you put your cursor, you press tab. It's gonna actually push it. Okay, so this shows you the hierarchy, right? That line 12 is the parent of this div. This line 12 is the parent of 13, and is grandparents, if you want to call it so, grandparents to image. So you can see the relationship. So this is a child. This div on line 13 is a child to the div on line 12. And this div on line 13, we've given it a position of absolute, right? So this actually came in. Let's take it out. So we've given it position absolute. But now let's come to this div, which is a parent to the position absolute to say. Let's give it an ID, right? ID to say um, parent, maybe parent container. So let's copy that. And let's go to our stars.css. Let's have is an ID. So we give hash and we drop it there. So we drop it there. Okay, so remember this one has a position absolute, so we can come here to say position, position relative, right? Position relative. So when you do this, let's check it out. So when you do this, right? When you do this, what's going to happen? This social media div is actually going to be positioned relative to its parent, right? So where there is no ancestor that has position relative, it is actually going to be positioned relative to the document. That's HTML document, or through, or it's going to be positioned to the viewport, if you want to call it so. So to see more demonstration of this, let me give it a width and say maybe 500 pixels. And let me give it a border, yeah? Border. So I can give it a border to say 2 pixels solid blue. So that it will be distinct from the other one. Okay, so let me give it this is a width. I've not given it height, so let me give it height to say maybe 700 pixels. Okay. So what I want to do, that's too much. So let's reduce it to maybe 400. Okay. Then I can now zoom out. Let me zoom out a little bit. Okay. So you can see. So now, this is what I'm explaining to you. We gave this div that has the social media icons, we gave it position absolute. But now the parent div, we gave it position relative. So I said, for you to see what position absolute does, or maybe to see it in action, right? You need to either give its parents or its ancestor. It's going to look for the closest ancestor that has position relative, and is going to be positioned relative to its ancestor. But if there is none of its ancestors, so when I say ancestor, it could mean the parent, it could mean grandparent. You could keep going up and up depending on how your HTML is structured. So it looks for the closest ancestor that has the styling called position relative, and it will position itself relative to that ancestor. But if there is no ancestor that has position relative, then by default, it's going to position itself relative to the document. That's this entire web page that you can see. You understand? So here, just to show you, this the div inside its parent. So let's use the top. Let's try to use the navigation to say maybe top, a top 0. Let me see, top 0 and right 0. Let me see. So you can see I say top 0, right 0, and it's actually going to go to the top, like it will be at the top right of the parents or of the ancestor. So it could be a parent, like I say, it could be grandparent, right? So it will just go to the top right, because I've said top 0, right 0. So stay up, just stay up there. That's what it means. If I say bottom 0, right 0, it's gonna come to the bottom right. So if I say bottom 0, left 0, it's gonna come to the bottom left. So let's just practicalize that. So this top 0, right 0. So if we say instead of top and we say bottom, so you can see bottom 0 is just going to come to that parent. Then same thing, maybe you say bottom 0 left, you can say left, bottom 0, left 0. It's going to go. So this is actually how you can move this element around. But now you may decide to add real values, maybe 100 pixels and left maybe 20 pixels. So what happens? So you equally see it's going to move. So this thing will just move around. Okay, so let's give it a value that is higher than the width and the height of the parent. So the width is 500 pixels, height is 400 pixels. So what if we say that bottom should be, or let's say top 500 pixels? What will happen? Top. So instead of bottom, so you say the top. We can still have bottom and top. So let's have it. So we have bottom, let's have top. So you can still have bottom and top to say maybe 550 pixels. So let's see what happens. Okay. So it actually moves it out because we've said 550 pixels. But of course, you don't want to do this, right? You don't want to do this. So if you want to move these social media icons, what you want to do is just to move it. You want to move it within the parent. You understand? There'll be no need to have a parent and still take it out of the parent. I don't think it makes sense. So, so this 550 pixels is too much. So you would likely give it maybe like 50 or something, 50 to see how it looks. So top 50 pixels, bottom 100. So you can actually give it right also, right? To say maybe 200 pixels, right? So you are still going to see how it plays out. So just to show you, using positions, these are some of the things you can do and yeah, some of the things you can achieve. Then let's do the last one. Last one is going to be, let's still comment this out. Or what we can do is we can delete. So, and the parent container, let's comment out the styling for the parent container for now so that it does not affect what we are about to demonstrate. Okay, um, so we want to show position sticky. That's what we want to do. Position sticky. So I'm going to modify. Okay, so let me see. Let me bring in another. Let me comment out the social media icons, right? So that I will show you a practical example. Let's just comment this out for now. Yeah. So it's no longer there. So let's say, let me show you something. Maybe you want to create a nav bar, for example, right? Maybe like a nav bar. So you can use the nav tag. It's actually a nav element or nav tag. So you can see here, the nav elements represent a section of a page that links to other pages or to parts within the page. A section with navigation links. So you can use nav for nav bar. We want to create a sample nav bar and just to demonstrate that position sticky, how it works. So let's say nav, and within the nav you have maybe, let's say 2 divs, right? 2 divs, 1 and 2. Let's have the second one. So let's say within this second div, let's start with the second div. Maybe you want to create anchor tags to say ahref you want to bring in some stuffs like this. Just let me see. So here you want to say maybe hash. You remember I said when you have ahref equals to hash, it means by default, this link is not going anywhere, right? So let's say you want to have about, yeah? So maybe about us. You can have another one. Let me just copy it. So you can say next could be services, right? Then you can have maybe team. You can have team. I don't intend to. Okay. You can have team. Then you can have contact us, maybe. Contact. Contact us, right? So you have about us, services, product. You can see have products. Just to demonstrate, you can have product. Okay, so you can have products, Control S. Okay, so we have this. In this other div, we have like the logo. So here we can have the logo. So we can still have an A, right? It links nowhere. We can have some kind of logo to say maybe W Tech Hub. So I'm just assuming we have a logo. So let's see how it looks in the first place. Okay, so it looks like this. Okay, so let's see. So with this nav, so we can style the nav since we have just one nav, right? We can go to our style.css and just style the nav. NAV. So what do we want to do here? So first, we want to make it to display flex. We can say inline flex, right? Inline flex. So when it does that, so everything is going to come on the same line, right? So what we want to do is that we want to shift, we want to, make about us services, product team. We want to make it to the far right, to get to the far right, and we want to make WTech Hub, which is the logo, to be at the left. So what do we do? So okay, so let's see. So what we can do is to say justify content. So we want to say space around, no, space between. Yeah, let's see what happens. Okay, so space between. Okay, or let's say, okay, so let me see. Okay, so what we can do, right? We want it to get to the far left and far right. Okay, so let me see. Justify content space between. Okay, so let me try this first. To the display flex, justify content space between. Okay, yeah, so that works. So let's give it a background color so that we'll see what we are doing. Or what we can do is, okay, so let's give it some border, yeah, border. So border is gonna make sense to say maybe 2 pixels, solid brown, yeah. Okay, so it gives it some kind of border, and what we want to do is to give it some kind of padding, yeah. So that let's give some kind of padding. So I want to demonstrate position sticky. So let's give it some kind of padding to say maybe 10 pixels. Okay, so it gives us some space. Okay, so what can we do? This is the logo. Okay, so I think we can, yeah, this is just a simple nav bar, right? It's just You can always play around and, do a lot of stuffs there. But I think another thing we want to do, let's see text decoration. So we say text decoration and we say none. I want to actually remove those underline. Okay, so I have to do it directly on the A. Okay, so what I can do is to say nav target the A, that's the anchor tag, and give it text decoration none, none, right? So you're supposed to take out this underline. That's what I expect. So let's see. Okay, so I think we should target the A directly. Let's target the A directly and see. Let's target the A directly and see. Okay, okay. So that works. We remove the underline and we can change the color of the text because by default, anchor tags have the color of blue. So we can change the color of the text to maybe, so we can say color. We can make it black, right? Okay. So this is just a simple nav bar, and maybe just still to demonstrate, let's say before the nav bar, we have something like this. Let's say before the nav bar, we have something like, so let's say like contact, opening hours. So let's have a paragraph to say opening, opening hours, opening hours to say, so say maybe Mondays to Fridays. So this is more like for a business. So you have opening hours Mondays to Fridays. Okay, so let's give it some good space, right? So let's still put it in a div. All this is just to demonstrate position sticky so that you would really appreciate what it is and how it looks like, right? So what we just did is to just put the opening hours Mondays to Fridays in within a div. Then we can actually style this div to say maybe ID of um, business hours or something. I don't know. Business hours. As long as you can be able to tie the ID to where it is. So I think that works. Maybe we come here to style. That's an ID. So ash business hours. So let's just give it some, margin, maybe just some good margin, 30 pixels. Okay. So I just want to demonstrate position sticky. So this where we want to give the position sticky, like this nav bar, right? Let's give it position sticky. So you're actually going to see how the nav bar is here, and we say position sticky, sticky. So what happens when you scroll? Oh, what happened? Okay, okay, okay. So I know what happened. So position sticky, of course, you need to give top, or you need to give any of those navigations to work, right? You need to give any of those navigations. So when I say any of those navigations, I mean like top, left, bottom, right, any of them. So when you say position sticky, you need to give at least one of the navigation, when you say position sticky, we say top 0. So if we scroll, so can you see? Okay, let's give it a background color. So that's actually going to make sense. Let's give it a background color. So let's say background color. I don't know what background color to give, but maybe uh, let me see, maybe Bollywood. Then from this Bollywood, I can get something like this to say maybe this RGB 218.133.22. Okay, yeah. So that's that. So when you scroll up, right, it's actually going to scroll until where it gets to that position sticky. You see, when it gets to that position sticky, it's going to stop there. Every other thing will scroll past it. So maybe you've been seeing designs of nav bars, and the nav bar looks normal, right? It just looks like a normal nav bar until you start scrolling. When you start scrolling, you see that the nav bar will remain. It will stick at the top, while every other thing would be able to scroll under it. So this is a practical example of that position sticky. I had to use a nav bar so that you really appreciate how it works. Right. Okay, so yeah, so that's that with the position sticky. So so that's top 0. So what if let's play around, maybe what if we have lefts? Let's see. What if we have lefts to say maybe 100 pixels? What happens? So no significant change. Is it because, okay, it seems it's because this div, it's all the way from our far left to far right. But what if we give it a width and try to shrink it? Let me see. Let me try to give it a width and shrink it. So if we say width of maybe 700 pixels, 700 pixels. So it's actually going to come small, okay? So you can actually see how that works. So left, let's take out the left for now so that you will see. This is how it is. We've actually reduced it to 700 pixels. So this is how it looks by default. Remember, top is still 0, so it's still going to stick at the top. So, but now, if you come here and say left, maybe you just give some value to say left 200 pixels. So you see, it's actually going to shift 200 pixels to this place, to where it is, but it's still going to be sticky, right? So just to let you know, you can play around bottom, you can add your bottom and, just depending on what you want, right? Bottom, maybe 50 pixels or something, you know. So that's really what it is here. That's position sticky. So quickly, we'll just go into animation, just a little on animation, then we'll be able to close. All right, so that's position for you. So next, let's talk about animation. All right. So this lorem here, let's delete this lorem. Um, let's delete it. Okay. So let's have a div, yeah. So let's have a div to demonstrate animation. So let's say div, right? So we can give it a class. Let's use class this time to say animation, maybe animation div, right? So we can copy that, go to our styles, and, let's style it here. So animation div is a class. So that will be a dot animation div, then your curly brace. All right. So within the curly brace, we want to give it a width. Let's give it a width to say maybe 150 pixels, right? So 150 pixels. Then height, maybe still 150 pixels. Let's make it a perfect square. Then background color to be red. Okay, so let's see. So this is what we have, right? Or we can even make it smaller. I would like to make it smaller, maybe 100. Then here, 100, right? So you're going to have so to apply animation, let me drop a note here to say to apply animation, make use of the keyword at keyframes. At keyframes, right? So yeah, so at keyframes, so yeah, let me see. So at keyframes, you give it a name, and that's an identifier. So you give it a name, maybe, I don't know, maybe you can say my animation if you want. But whatever name you give to it, right, that's the name. So you can copy that name. Because you are tying the animation to this box, right? You are tying the animation to this div. So when you come here, you will say animation name. That's actually going to be the animation name. So you just drop that same name, my animation, you can see. So when you said at keyframes, you are going to have an identifier. Identifier is a name of your choice. You're going to choose whatever name you want to give to it. So, but take note that whatever name you give to it, where you want the animation to work, you have to go and specify animation name and you give it that animation. So, sorry. So within the my animation, you can say, okay, so animation name, okay. Then after that, you can have, let me see. Okay, so here you can have 0%, 0%, right? So more like at 0% of the animation, what should happen? You know, animation is actually going to be measured in seconds. Like you're going to be counted by, you're going to give some timing. There'll be an animation duration. So you want to say at 0% of that animation, something should happen. You can add 25%, something at maybe 50%. You want something to happen at 75% and at 100. So it's not compulsory to mention all of this. You can just say maybe at 0, 50, and 100. You can stop there. So, but here, what we want to do, we want to change the background, right? So we want to change the background color. So initially it's red. Remember, 0% is just the beginning, like 0. But when it gets to 25%, maybe you want the background color to maybe change to maybe aqua or something. At 50% of the animation duration, you want the background color still to change to maybe brown. Then at 75%. So you can actually play around with any property, but I'm just trying to use the background color, which is going to be very visible. Maybe this. Then at 100%, you can give another one, or you take it back to where it was. So you can say maybe background color of maybe black, right? Then okay. So let me see. So we've not given a timing, right? We've not given a timing. So instead of, I want us to use a shorthand. So instead of just animation name, because there's this animation, if you use animation keyword, is actually a shorthand. So you can see just using the word animation is a shorthand for, it combines 6 of the animation properties into a single property. What are the 6? Animation name is there. So let me list them to say, so shorthand, right? So shorthand for animation name, animation duration, then what else? Animation duration, animation timing function. So it's just similar to when we had transition in our previous class. Animation timing function. So here we can have ease, linear, ease in out, ease out, ease in, and the rest. So animation timing function. We can also have animation delay, right? Animation delay. Of course, that's going to be in seconds. So animation delay is like delay for a certain number of seconds before you actually start, right? Then you can also have animation iteration counts, animation iteration. Iteration is just how many times should it happen. So animation iteration counts. Then you also have animation direction, right? So this is a shorthand for all of this. So remember, we can have, so this is the name, animation name. So let's give it a duration to say maybe do this within 5 seconds, right? So what happens? Let's check it out. So let's start again. Okay, so we can give it infinite. Let's add more properties. We said my animation, I remember we are just changing background color, right? So we said it should work for 5 seconds, and we can give it animation timing function to say maybe linear, let it be linear. Then what else? Maybe delay if we want. If we want it to delay, we can say 1 second. Just delay for 1 second before you start. Then we now need to put the animation iteration count. So iteration count, like I said, is how many times should it happen. So it can range, is in numbers. So you can say, if you like, you can say 5 times, you can say 10, you can even say infinite, right? So infinite is that it will never stop. Infinite, then you now have the direction, maybe alternate. So you can see the animation direction, there's alternate, there is normal, there is reverse, there is alternate, reverse, and the rest. So you can play around. So we have my animation, and this is my animation, right? What is in my animation? What is here is that we have the animation at different percentages to say, oh, this animation is running for 5 seconds. Okay. So at 0% of that timing, do this. The background color should change to this. At 25%, the background color should change of this time. the background color should change to aqua. At 50%, like maybe like half of the time, that's like half of the time of the animation, background color should change to brown. At 75%, it should change to this. 100%, it should change to black. Then you say linear. Linear just has to do with the I think animation curve or something. So it linear, ease in, out, it can ease out, it can ease in. You can just play around with, this function to see how this works. Or while the next one stands for delay. How long should I wait before I start? So that's what that delay stands for. Then we have infinite. So this is an animation iteration count. It's like how many times should this happen? So we said infinite. It should just keep happening. Alternate is the animation direction. So I said for the animation direction we have, okay, so let me type it here to say animation direction. We have, so we can have normal, right? We can have normal, we can have alternate, we can have alternate reverse, alternate reverse. We can have, yeah, normal, alternate. Yeah, we can also have reverse. Yeah. So let's check it out. So it's actually going to be changing. It's going to change for, in fact, it will never stop changing. It will just run and run and run and run. Why? Because we have said that the iteration count should be infinite. So it will just keep, the colors will just keep changing and changing and it will never stop. So, but now if we come here to say, instead of infinite, let's say 2. So what this 2 means is that it should just run twice. So let's reload this page, right? Let's reload. Remember, it will take 1 second, yeah? Black, remember black is the last. Then it goes again. Okay, so I think it has gone twice. Let's see. The first one was red, then aqua, then brown, then cadet blue. Okay, so let's change this cadet blue and make it look yellow. Maybe yellow, something very distinct. Want to make it yellow. Okay, so maybe let's choose this color. Okay, so I think brown still looks a bit, so we can make brown like blue. We can change from brown to blue so that the colors will be very distinct for us to see. Okay? Yeah, so we have red, aqua, the kind of bluish color, then something that looks yellowish, then black. So that will be very distinct. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're expecting 5 changes. So let's reload, and we are expecting that twice. So let's start. Remember 1 second, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Yeah. So that's actually gone twice. If you increase it to say, maybe instead of 2, maybe you say 5, it's gonna go 5 times within 5 seconds. So each of them is going to be 5 seconds. It will go again, then go again, then go again, and keep going. So this is really the shorthand, right? So, but let's do something a little bit interesting. Let's add, because I had to teach position first. Remember, position relative is actually going to take it out from where it is. And, you can use top. Remember, you can use top to those navigation styles, which is top, bottom, left, right, to move it around. So immediately we give it position relative. What happens is that the element is going to be more like, it's going to take a position relative to its current, position where it can move. And immediately it moves, nothing else can fill that space. Don't forget. So here at 0%, 25%, so we can leave it at 25%. Maybe we can add some stuffs to say, maybe, okay, so maybe here we can say top. Top should just be 0. Then bottom should just be 0 at 0%. It should just be 0, 0. Then at 25%, we can say left, or we can say top, yeah? Let top still remain 0. So we still want it to be at the top, right? That's why we are saying top 0. Then we say left, maybe 200 pixels, right? Then here, we come here to say at 50%, what should happen? The top should be like, maybe say 200 pixels or something. Then left should be 200 pixels. Then at 75%, we want to say top should be 200 pixels. Two hundred pixels. Then that's 75%. Left 0, right? Maybe. Then at 100%, it should just go back. Left 0, top 0. So this is actually going to move, let's see. Yeah, so you can see. So remember, we gave a position of relative. So by giving a position of relative, it gives it the ability to move, right? Then you now, at each of the percentages, you now use top and like you use the navigation links to tell it top, move it this way, left, move it this way. And remember, it's animation. So you give it timing, So if we say infinite here, instead of 5, if we say animation in iteration count should be infinite, what's going to happen is that it's just going to run and just keep running, Yeah. Starts. So it should just keep running and running and running and running, right? So that's about animation. Yeah.